Hello, friends. Imagine you're sitting on the edge of your bed in your beautiful home in Scottsdale, Arizona, or maybe in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio. It's a Saturday morning. The sun is hitting the kitchen floor and you're getting ready for a big family BBQ. You reach down to pull on your socks, but you pause. You see it? That big toenail. It's not clear and pink like it used to be. It's turned a dull, sickly yellow. It's gotten thick. So thick your regular clippers can barely bite through it. You might even see a little bit of white debris underneath. You probably think, well, I'm 70 now. This is just what happens when you get older. You shrug it off, cover it up with a heavy cotton sock, and go about your day flipping burgers for the grandkids. But friends, what if I told you that this completely normal habit of looking the other way is actually a hidden ticking time bomb in your body? A bomb that could strip away your independence and land you in a nursing home faster than you can imagine? I'm not trying to scare you. I am trying to save you. You see, that fungus isn't just an ugly nail. It is a biological opportunistic invader that has found a breach in your fortress. Think of your body as a high-performance American V8 engine. For decades, it's run smooth. But as we age, the fuel lines, your arteries, can start to get gunked up. When your blood sugar stays even just a little bit high, your blood begins to transform. It's no longer that life-giving river. It becomes a thick, syrupy sludge. Because your feet are the furthest point from your heart, that sludge moves at a crawl. This means the border patrol of your immune system, your white blood cells, can't get down to your toes to fight off the spores we encounter every day in the gym shower or even our own bathrooms. The fungus moves in, literally eating the keratin of your nail, creating a rot that can spread deep into the tissue. I remember a patient named Frank, a retired mail carrier from Florida. Frank spent his life on his feet. He saw that yellow nail and ignored it for 3 years because he didn't want to deal with the copay. Then, one humid July morning while gardening, a tiny scratch near that infected nail turned his whole foot purple. Within 12 hours, Frank was in the back of an ambulance, sirens blaring, terrified that he was about to lose his leg and his 401k to a massive hospital bill. His doctor told him bluntly, "Frank, if you'd waited one more day, you wouldn't be walking back into your house." In today's video, I am going to blow the whistle on this hidden danger. There is a lot of life-saving information today, so please stick with me until the very end. Before we dive into the dark truth, if you truly care about your health and maintaining your independence for years to come, please hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell. And if you find today's video helpful, type the word "strong feet" forward in the comments section below to support our community. Friends, I want you to take a moment and look down at your feet. I know we don't like to talk about them. We hide them in thick wool socks or bury them under the covers. But I need you to be honest with your feet.
LF.
Do you see a nail that's lost its luster? Is it turning a dull, sickly yellow? Is it getting thick, maybe a little brittle or crumbly at the edges? If you're nodding your head, listen to me very closely, because what I'm about to tell you is the difference between a peaceful retirement in your own home and a one-way ticket to a sterile hospital ward that could drain your bank account dry. Most people think a yellow toenail is just an eyesore. They think it's just a part of getting older, like gray hair or a stiff back. But I am here to tell you, that is a dangerous, life-altering lie. That yellowing isn't just a cosmetic blemish, it is a biological invasion. It is an opportunistic predator that is waiting for your body's weakest moment to strike. And for Robert, a 64-year-old retired steelworker from right outside Youngstown, Ohio, that ugly nail almost cost him everything he spent 40 years sweating in those mills to build. Robert is a man's man. He spent decades on his feet, working hard, raising his kids, and now he just wanted to enjoy his hard-earned rest. But after a hip replacement a year ago, Robert found himself moving a lot less. He'd spend his afternoons in his favorite leather recliner, the one with the worn armrests, watching the Browns game or looking at photos of his grandkids. He noticed his big toenail was getting thick and yellow. It looked like a piece of old, rotted driftwood. He thought about seeing a podiatrist, but then he thought about the $80 specialist copay. He thought about the cost of the prescriptions. He told himself, "Robert, don't be soft. It's just a nail. Save that money for the grandkids' college fund." Friends, that decision almost cost him his life. I want us to go into slow motion for a second so you can understand exactly what was happening inside Robert's body while he sat in that recliner. You see, Robert had onychomycosis. That's the medical term for a fungal infection of the nail. But don't let the fancy name fool you. Think of these fungi as microscopic termites. They don't just sit on top of the nail, they eat it. They secrete a specialized enzyme called keratinase. This enzyme is like a biological acid. It slowly, atom by atom, dissolves the keratin, the hard protein that makes your nail a protective shield. As the fungus eats away, it creates tiny microscopic caverns and tunnels throughout the nail plate. Your once solid, translucent nail becomes a porous, honeycombed mess. Now here's the terrifying part. Because Robert was sedentary, because he was sitting in that chair more than he was walking, his circulation was slowing down. In your 20s, your blood is like a rushing mountain stream, delivering oxygen and white blood cell soldiers to every corner of your body instantly. But at 64, especially after surgery, Robert's blood was moving like thick, cold maple syrup through a rusty V8 engine. The soldiers couldn't get to his toes fast enough to fight back. Then, the moment happened. It wasn't a car crash. It wasn't a fall. It was something so small Robert didn't even feel it. As he was putting on a shoe to go out for a Saturday BBQ, the pressure of the leather pressed against that brittle fungal nail. Because the nail was honeycombed and weak, it didn't flex, it snapped. A tiny hairline crack formed, stretching from the edge of the nail down into the raw pink flesh of the nail bed. That crack was the open sign for the real killer, Streptococcus bacteria. Listen to me closely. The fungus didn't kill Robert, but it opened the door and rolled out the red carpet for the bacteria. Within 48 hours, Robert's life spiraled into a nightmare. It started as a dull ache. By Sunday morning, his toe was a throbbing, angry red. By Sunday night, the redness had climbed to his ankle. It wasn't just red anymore. It was turning a deep, bruised purple, and it felt hot to the touch, like a stove element left on high. Robert tried to tough it out. He took some Tylenol. He didn't want to call 911 because he knew an ambulance ride alone could cost $1,500. He was terrified of the medical bankruptcy he'd seen his neighbors go through. But by Monday morning, as he tried to walk to the kitchen to make coffee, his legs gave out. He collapsed onto the linoleum floor, gasping for air. His heart was racing like a hummingbird's wings. His wife, Mary, found him there, shivering violently despite the Ohio summer heat. When the paramedics arrived, they didn't see an ugly nail. They saw a man in the early stages of septic shock. In the ER, the doctors gave it a name: severe cellulitis secondary to onychomycosis. Let's look at the slow-motion destruction of what was happening inside Robert's leg at that moment. The Streptococcus bacteria weren't just sitting there. They were multiplying every 20 minutes. They were releasing toxins that literally melt the connective tissue between your skin and your muscle. Imagine your internal tissues like a sturdy brick wall. These bacterial toxins act like a solvent that dissolves the mortar, causing the whole structure to turn into a soup of inflammation and dead cells. This is what we call the inflammatory cascade. Robert's immune system, finally realizing there was an invasion, went into a blind panic. It flooded his leg with fluid to try and drown the bacteria, but because his veins were weak, that fluid had nowhere to go. Pressure built up and up, cutting off the tiny capillaries that feed the skin. His leg wasn't just swollen, it was suffocating from the inside out. And the worst part? The bacteria found the superhighway, the lymphatic system. From there, it was a straight shot to his bloodstream. Once bacteria enter the blood, friends, that is a ticking time bomb. It's called sepsis. It's when your own body's defense system starts attacking your organs. Your kidneys start to flicker out like a failing power grid. Your lungs fill with fluid. Your blood pressure drops through the floor. As Robert lay in that ICU bed, hooked up to 4 different IV drips, he wasn't thinking about the Browns. He was looking at the ceiling, tears in his eyes, thinking about that college fund. He was thinking about the fact that 1 week in this hospital could cost more than his entire retirement savings. He was terrified that he would leave this hospital not in his own car, but in a wheelchair, headed to a nursing home because he could no longer walk on a leg that had been eaten away by infection. He was facing the very thing every American over 55 fears most: losing his independence and becoming a burden to his children. Does this sound familiar? Have you been ignoring a minor issue because you're afraid of the cost? Friends, I am not fear-mongering. I am telling you the clinical, cold, hard truth. That yellow nail is a breach in your armor. It is a hole in the hull of your ship. If you don't plug it, the water will come rushing in, and it won't matter how much you've saved or how hard you've worked. Robert was lucky. They caught it just in time. He spent 10 days in the hospital and 3 weeks in a rehabilitation center, learning how to walk again without pain. The medical bills? They were astronomical. Over $40,000 before insurance even began to haggle. That's money that was supposed to go to his granddaughter's nursing degree, all because of a harmless fungal nail. You need to understand that your feet are the foundation of your entire life. If the foundation is rotting, the whole house is at risk of collapse. When you have poor circulation, which most of us do as we age, you cannot afford to have a localized infection. You don't have the engine power to fight it off. So I'm asking you, for the sake of your family, for the sake of your 401k, and for the sake of your own ability to walk down your own hallway, stop ignoring the warning signs. That yellow, crumbly texture, that's the sound of the termites eating your shield. That thickening, that's your body trying and failing to build a wall against an invader that's already inside. Don't wait until you're gasping for air on the kitchen floor like Robert. Don't wait until the deep purple stain of cellulitis is creeping up your calf. Your independence is the most valuable asset you own. Protect it. Examine your feet tonight, because a cosmetic issue is often just the fuse on a bomb that can destroy your entire world. Listen to me closely. You are the CEO of your own health. The doctors in the ER are just the mechanics who try to fix the wreck after it happens. It's up to you to keep the car on the road. Don't let a tiny fungus be the thing that takes you out of the game. Stay vigilant, stay active, and for heaven's sake, pay attention to what your body is trying to tell you before the whisper turns into a scream. Friends, if you think what we just discussed was a wake-up call, then I need you to sit down and listen to me very, very closely for this next part. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just about a cosmetic issue. It isn't about being embarrassed to wear sandals at the beach. We are talking about a silent, opportunistic predator that is looking for any crack in your armor to stage a full-scale invasion of your body. And for many of you watching right now, that crack is sitting right inside your shoe. I want to introduce you to someone who could be your neighbor, your sister, or even you. This is Elena. Elena is 52 years old, living in the heart of Chicago, Illinois. She's a high achiever, a pharmaceutical sales rep who is always on the move, pounding the pavement of the magnificent mile in professional, high-end heels. To the outside world, Elena has it all together. She's active in her church. She never misses a Sunday BBQ with her family, and she's worked her tail off to build a 401k that was supposed to be her ticket to a peaceful retirement in Florida. But Elena had a secret. For years, she noticed her big toenail was getting thick. It turned a sickly, pale yellow, then a dusty brown. It was brittle, crumbly, and frankly, she hated looking at it. But like so many busy Americans, Elena didn't have time for a toe problem. She did what she thought was the smart professional thing. She went to a salon every 2 weeks and had them slap on thick layers of dark professional gel polish. Out of sight, out of mind, right? She thought she was just managing an aesthetic nuisance. What Elena didn't realize, and what you must understand, is that she was living with a ticking time bomb. You see, Elena was also pre-diabetic. She knew her blood sugar was a little high, but she didn't monitor it. She felt fine, but inside her body a terrifying synergy was brewing. Just like we saw earlier with the way circulation affects the heart, the same rules apply to your feet, only more so. Because your feet are the furthest point from your heart. They are the end of the line for your blood supply. Now, I want you to imagine this in slow motion. Underneath that pretty gel polish, a colony of fungi called dermatophytes had set up a base of operations. These aren't just stagnant spots, they are living, breathing organisms that feed on keratin, the protein that makes up your nails. But here's where it gets grisly. In a healthy person, the immune system might keep this colony contained, but because Elena's blood sugar was chronically elevated, her blood wasn't the thin, life-giving oxygen stream it should be. Instead, it was becoming thick and syrupy. Think of a V8 engine where the oil has turned into a thick, gritty sludge. That engine can't lubricate the pistons, and eventually the metal starts to grind and heat up. In Elena's feet, that sugary sludge was doing something even worse. High blood sugar acts like high-octane jet fuel for fungus. While Elena was busy selling life-saving medications to doctors, the fungi in her toe were having an all-you-can-eat buffet on her high-glucose tissue. The fungus wasn't just on the nail anymore. It began to secrete specialized enzymes, essentially microscopic acids, that started to dissolve the delicate protein bonds between her nail bed and her skin. Listen to me closely. This created a microscopic separation, a hidden pocket of raw, unprotected flesh right under the nail. And because she was wearing those tight, professional heels in the sweltering, humid Chicago summer, that pocket became a literal petri dish. It was dark, it was damp, and it was filled with sugar. One afternoon during a high-stakes business meeting in a skyscraper overlooking Lake Michigan, it happened. Elena felt a weird, throbbing heat in her foot. She brushed it off. But then, a wave of disorientation hit her. Her vision blurred. She started sweating, but it wasn't the heat. It was a cold, clammy drenching. She tried to speak, but the words felt heavy in her mouth. Her colleagues thought she was having a stroke. They called 911. By the time the ambulance arrived, Elena's temperature was spiking at 103 degrees. In the emergency room, the doctors didn't look at her heart first. They followed the trail of inflammation. When they peeled back her sock, they found a nightmare. That ugly yellow nail had facilitated a deep tissue infection. The fungus had breached the skin, and bacteria had followed right behind it into the bloodstream. Elena was in the early stages of sepsis. Now let's look at the slow-motion destruction inside her foot during those hours. Because her circulation was so compromised by her prediabetes, her white blood cells, the infantry of her immune system, were essentially stuck in a traffic jam. They couldn't get to the toe to fight the invader. The blood vessels were so narrowed and rusted out by sugar plaques that they couldn't deliver the emergency antibiotics the doctors were pumping into her IV. The doctor sat Elena's husband down and gave him the news that every American over 50 fears in their marrow. He said, "We might have to amputate." Can you imagine the panic? One day you're worrying about your sales targets, and the next you're staring at the possibility of never walking again. Elena lay in that hospital bed, terrified. She wasn't just thinking about the pain. She was thinking about the bills. She knew her insurance wouldn't cover everything. She was looking at a massive, penalized withdrawal from her 401k, her hard-earned retirement savings, just to cover the specialty prosthetic care and the months of home nursing. She saw her dream of that Florida retirement home evaporating in a cloud of medical debt. She saw herself becoming a burden, needing her children to help her get out of bed, to help her bathe, to wipe her mouth, because she could no longer move independently. Friends, the tragedy is that this wasn't a sudden accident. It was a slow-motion invasion that she ignored because she thought it was just ugly. Does this sound familiar? Do you have a nail that's a little bit thicker than the others? Is there a yellow tint you've been ignoring? I am not fear-mongering when I tell you that your body is a closed system. When one part is under siege, the whole system is at risk. When your blood sugar is high, it's not just a number on a chart. It is a chemical change that turns your very life force into a breeding ground for pathogens. Think of your vascular system like the plumbing in an old Chicago brownstone. If the pipes are clear, the water flows and everything stays clean. But if those pipes get clogged with grease and hair, or in this case sugar and plaque, the water stagnates. And where there is stagnant water, there is rot. In Elena's case, the fungus had created a biofilm, a slimy, impenetrable shield that protected the colony from her own immune cells. Underneath that shield, the fungus was literally eating her alive, cell by cell, causing what we call necrosis. This is the death of body tissue. Once that tissue dies, it turns black. It becomes toxic. It releases poisons back into the blood that can shut down your kidneys and your liver in a matter of hours. You won't believe how quickly a small infection can turn into a systemic catastrophe when your V8 engine is running on dirty fuel. Elena was lucky. They saved her foot, but they couldn't save her career. The months of recovery, the multiple surgeries to debride the dead tissue, and the lingering nerve damage meant she could no longer stand for hours or walk the city streets. She had to retire early, taking a massive hit to her financial security. All because of a yellow toenail she thought was just a nuisance. I am telling you this because I don't want you to be the next case study. I don't want you sitting in an ER watching your 401k drain away into a hospital billing department because you didn't pay attention to the whisper of a fungal infection. Your nails are the windows to your internal health. If they are changing color, if they are crumbling, your body is screaming at you that your defenses are down. It's telling you that your circulation is failing, that your sugar is too high, and that an invader has breached the perimeter. Don't hide it under polish. Don't wait for the fever. Don't wait until you're calling 911 from a boardroom or your living room floor. Listen to me closely. Check your feet tonight, because that ugly nail is a warning light on the dashboard of your life. And if you ignore it, the engine isn't just going to stall, it's going to explode. Stay vigilant, friends. Your independence, your savings, and your very life depend on it. Pay attention to the signals before the whisper turns into a scream that you can't ignore. Going to explode. Stay vigilant, friends. Your independence, your savings, and your very life depend on it. Pay attention to the signals before the whisper turns into a scream that you can't ignore. Because right now I want to tell you about Greg. Greg is 71 years old, a proud Navy veteran living out in the sun-drenched suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona. Now, Greg is the kind of man we all know, or maybe you are this man. He spends his Saturday mornings meticulously mowing his lawn despite the dry heat. He never misses a Sunday BBQ with his grandkids, and he keeps his 1968 Mustang in such pristine condition you could eat off the engine block. Greg values one thing above all else: his independence. He served his country. He worked 40 years in manufacturing, and he's earned the right to live life on his own terms. But Greg had a secret. For years, he'd been looking down at his feet in the shower and seeing something he just dismissed as a part of getting old. His big toenails weren't pink and healthy anymore. They were thick. I'm talking thick, like a piece of old weathered plywood. They were a nasty, crusty yellow, almost brown in some spots. He joked with his buddies at the VFW that his feet had survived combat boots in the humidity of the Pacific, so a little toe funk wasn't going to stop him. He'd go down to the local drugstore, pick up one of those little over-the-counter creams, slop it on the surface, and put his socks back on. He thought he was fixing it. Friends, listen to me closely. Greg wasn't just dealing with an ugly nail. He was hosting a silent, opportunistic invader that was waiting for the perfect moment of weakness to strike. And that moment was coming because Greg had another secret. Years of smoking, a habit he'd picked up in the service, had left him with peripheral artery disease, or PAD. I want you to visualize what was happening inside Greg's legs, because this is the part the doctors in the 5-minute clinic visits never have time to explain. Imagine the majestic V8 engine in Greg's Mustang. When it's new, the fuel lines are wide open, the oil is slick, and everything moves with precision. But Greg's arteries? They weren't wide open fuel lines anymore. Because of the PAD, his arteries were like old galvanized plumbing in a house built in the 1940s. Inside those vessels, calcium and cholesterol had been building up for decades. It starts as a thin film, but then it hardens. It becomes like rust inside a pipe. Every single day, the space for his blood to flow was getting smaller and smaller. His blood, which should be a life-giving river, was turning into a thick, sluggish sludge as it tried to force its way through those narrow, grit-filled channels. By the time that blood reached Greg's feet, the furthest point from his heart, it wasn't a rushing river anymore. It was a pathetic, dying trickle. Now, why does this matter for a yellow toenail? This is the terrifying medical truth that should keep you up at night. Your blood isn't just there to carry oxygen, it's your internal military. It carries your white blood cells, the soldiers that fight off infection. But because Greg's fuel lines were clogged with rust, his internal army couldn't reach the front lines. His toes were essentially a demilitarized zone. They were defenseless. And that fungus? Onychomycosis. It doesn't just sit on top of the nail. This is a living, breathing organism. It's a parasite. It thrives in dark, damp, low-oxygen environments. When it saw that Greg's circulation was failing, it realized the gates were open. It didn't just stay in the nail keratin. It began to drill. In slow motion, the fungus secretes enzymes that literally melt the protein of your nail. It creates microscopic tunnels, burrowing deeper and deeper, past the nail bed and into the soft, fleshy tissue underneath. In a healthy person, the white blood cells would swarm that area and kill the invader. But in Greg, there were no soldiers. The fungus began to colonize the very bone of his toe. This is what we call osteomyelitis. It is a deep-seated, horrific infection of the bone itself. Does this sound familiar? Have you looked at your own feet and thought, it's just a bit of fungus? Friends, I am not fear-mongering when I tell you that fungus is a ticking time bomb. For Greg, the breaking point didn't happen gradually. It happened on a Tuesday night while he was watching a football game. He felt a dull throb in his foot, a heavy, pulsing ache that he couldn't ignore. He pulled off his sock, and the smell hit him like a physical blow. It was the scent of rotting meat, the smell of death. He looked down and his big toe wasn't yellow anymore. It was turning a bruised, necrotic purple, almost black at the tip. The panic that set in was absolute. Greg tried to stand up, but his leg felt like lid. He ended up crawling to the phone to call 911. Can you imagine the pride of a Navy veteran, a man who mows his own lawn and fixes his own cars, reduced to crawling on his kitchen floor because his toe was literally dying? When the paramedics arrived, they didn't see an ugly nail. They saw a systemic catastrophe. In the ER, the doctors were stern. They told Greg the truth because his circulation was so poor, they couldn't just give him a pill. The infection had moved into the bone and the blood flow was so restricted that antibiotics couldn't even reach the site of the war. Greg sat there, shivering under those thin hospital blankets, listening to the machines beep, and all he could think about was the money. He thought about his 401k. He thought about the house he'd worked his whole life to pay off. He was looking at a high-risk vascular surgery, thousands upon thousands of dollars, just for a chance to keep his foot. And if the surgery failed, the doctor didn't sugarcoat it. It would mean amputation. It would mean a permanent move to an assisted living facility. Think about that. Losing your home, losing the ability to drive your car, losing the right to choose when you eat or when you sleep, all because of a yellow toenail you ignored for 5 years. Greg was terrified that he would end up in a nursing home, relying on a stranger to wipe his mouth and change his clothes, watching his life savings drain away into the pockets of a healthcare corporation until there was nothing left for his kids or grandkids. He was facing medical bankruptcy and the loss of his soul, all starting from his feet. You see, Greg's story proves that your body is a single, interconnected machine. You cannot have a localized problem in your feet when your heart and your arteries are the ones failing to provide the fuel. Onychomycosis is an opportunistic predator. It waits for your V8 engine to start sputtering. It waits for the rust to take over your pipes. And once it finds a way in, it doesn't just take the toe, it takes your independence. It takes your dignity. Listen to me closely. If your nails are changing color, if they are thickening, if they feel like wood, do not go to the drugstore for a quick fix. That is like putting a Band-Aid on a burst pipe in the basement. You have to address the sludge in your system. You have to restart the flow. Because if you don't, the next person I'm talking about in one of these videos could be you. You could be the one staring at a black toe, wondering if this is the night you lose your house. I want you to take a deep breath. We are going to talk about how to stop this. We are going to talk about the life-saving rules that can flush the rust out of your system and keep the invaders at bay. Because you deserve to stay in your home. You deserve to keep your 401k. And you deserve to walk on your own 2 feet for as long as you live. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you next is the difference between a long, healthy retirement and a one-way trip to the institutionalized care you feared your entire life. Friends, listen to me closely, because what I'm about to tell you next is the difference between a long, healthy retirement and a one-way trip to the institutionalized care you feared your entire life. You've seen what happened to Robert in Ohio, to Elena in Chicago, and to Greg, that brave veteran in Phoenix. These weren't people who were looking for trouble. They were hardworking Americans, just like you, who thought a little bit of yellow under the toenail was just a part of getting old. They thought they were saving money by ignoring a cosmetic issue, but instead they ended up staring down the barrel of medical bankruptcy and the terrifying prospect of losing their limbs. I am not fear-mongering when I tell you that the fungus living under your nail right now is not a passive tenant. It is an opportunistic invader. It is a silent squatter that is waiting for your body's weakest moment to strike. And today, I'm going to give you the rules to evict that squatter for pennies on the dollar. Because your 401k shouldn't go to a hospital's billing department just because you didn't know how to treat a yellow nail. Does this sound familiar? You look down in the shower and you see that big toe looking a little cloudy. Maybe it's a bit thicker than it used to be. You think, I'll get to it later. But while you're sitting in your armchair watching the game, that fungus is performing a slow-motion invasion. Imagine a microscopic drill bit. That's what fungal hyphae are. They are tiny, root-like structures that are slowly, cell by cell, dissolving the keratin, the very armor of your toe. As they eat through that armor, they create microscopic tunnels. Think of it like termites in the foundation of your home. You don't see the damage from the sidewalk, but inside the walls, the structure is rotting. When that nail becomes brittle and cracks, like it did for Robert, those tunnels become a wide-open highway for deadly bacteria like streptococcus. This isn't just a foot problem anymore. This is a breach in your perimeter. Once those bacteria get past the nail, they hit the soft, fleshy tissue underneath. In a healthy person, the immune system might catch it. But for us, as we get older, our circulation isn't what it used to be. Our blood is a bit thicker. The plumbing is a bit more clogged. The white blood cells, your body's internal police force, are stuck in traffic in your calves, unable to reach the toes. That's when the sludge happens. The area turns purple, it gets hot, and suddenly you're in an ambulance, praying the ER bills don't wipe out your grandkids' college fund. So, let's talk about rule number 1. This is the acidic barrier protocol, and it costs less than a gallon of gas. Listen to me, fungus is a specialized organism that thrives in a very specific environment. It loves an alkaline, damp, dark swamp. When you wear those leather shoes all day, you're creating a 5-star resort for onychomycosis. Rule number 1 is to change the soil so the weed can't grow. Every single night you're going to perform a 10-minute soak. You take a basin, any plastic tub will do, and you mix 1 part plain white distilled vinegar with 2 parts warm water. Here is the slow-motion science of why this works. The acetic acid in the vinegar lowers the pH of your skin and nail. To a fungus, this acid is like a toxic cloud. It halts their reproduction. It stops those microscopic drill bits from digging deeper into your nail bed. You aren't just washing your feet, you're chemically fortifying the castle walls. If you have a thickened nail like Greg's, that wood-like texture, the vinegar helps to soften the keratin, making it harder for the fungus to hide in the deep cracks. Do this for 10 minutes while you're watching the evening news. It's free, it's easy, and it's your first line of defense against the nursing home. Now, let's move to rule number 2. And this one is vital for my friends like Elena, who are managing their blood sugar. We call this the oxygen and light mandate. Remember, fungus is like mold in a damp basement. It hates the sun, and it hates fresh air. Most of us are suffocating our feet in synthetic socks and tight shoes.
Elena was hiding her nails under gel polish.
Friends, listen to me. That polish is like putting a plastic tarp over a patch of damp wood. You're trapping the moisture and the sugar-rich sweat right against the nail, creating a feast for the fungus. Rule number 2 is the 12-hour reset. For 12 hours a day, your feet must be dry and exposed to air. If you're at home, you're not wearing shoes. You're wearing wide toe box slippers, or better yet, no shoes at all. And you must ditch the polyester socks. I want you to go to the store and buy 100% cotton or copper-infused socks. Why? Because synthetic fibers trap moisture like a greenhouse. Cotton breathes. It wicks that moisture away. And here is a secret tip that won't cost you a dime. Take your shoes, the ones you wear every day, and put them out in the direct American sunshine for 3 hours. The UV rays from the sun are a natural disinfectant that can penetrate the fibers of your shoes and kill the fungal spores that are waiting to reinfect you the moment you slide your foot back in. Rule number 3 is the most important one for your physical independence. I call it the circulation kickstart. You remember Greg, our Navy vet? His fungus turned into a bone infection, osteomyelitis, because his blood couldn't get to his toes. When you have peripheral artery disease or even just general age-related stiffness, your feet are the last place to get fresh, oxygenated blood. Without that blood, your body can't fight the fungus, and it certainly can't deliver any medicine you might be taking. So here's your rule. 3 times a day, you're going to perform ankle pumps. You don't even have to get out of your favorite chair. You sit back, lift your legs, and point your toes toward your nose, then point them away. Do this 30 times. In slow motion, what's happening is your calf muscle, which we doctors call the second heart, is squeezing the deep veins. It's acting like a pump, forcing that sludge blood back up to your heart and pulling fresh, nutrient-rich blood down into your toes. This fresh blood carries the white blood cells that act like a demolition crew, tearing down the fungal colonies. If you don't keep the blood moving, you're basically leaving your toes to rot on the vine. Don't let a lack of movement be the reason you end up in a wheelchair, relying on a stranger to help you get to the bathroom. Finally, rule number 4, the no surgery zone. I see this all the time and it breaks my heart. Someone sees a thick yellow nail and they get frustrated. They take a pair of rusty craft scissors or a pocket knife and they try to perform surgery in their bathroom. Friends, please hear me on this. This is how you end up with sepsis. This is how Elena ended up in the ER. When you cut into that fungal nail, you're creating microscopic jagged edges and open wounds in a high contamination zone. Instead, rule number 4 is safe debridement. Use a clean, sterilized emery board, the cheap cardboard kind is fine, and gently file the top of the nail, not the front, but the top surface. You're thinning the shield. Do this after your vinegar soak when the nail is soft. By thinning the nail, you're allowing oxygen to reach the nail bed and making it possible for any topical treatment to actually reach the site of the infection. But you must never, ever draw blood. If you see pink, you stop. We are trying to save your money and your life, not create a doorway for a staph infection that will cost you $50,000 in hospital bills. I'm not telling you these things to be your friend. I'm telling you these things to be your advocate. I've seen too many good people who worked 30 years at the plant or in the classroom, lose everything because they thought a yellow toenail was just a sign of age. It's not. It's a warning light on the dashboard of your life. If you ignore it, you're not just risking an ugly foot. You're risking the blackened toe that Greg faced. You're risking the hot purple leg that nearly took Robert's life. You're risking the systemic sepsis that could leave you disoriented and incapacitated, forced to sell your home to pay for a long-term care facility. Do you want to be the person who can't walk down to the mailbox because your foot was amputated? Do you want to be the one who has to ask their children for a loan because a simple infection drained your retirement account? No. You want to be the one out in the yard mowing the lawn, firing up the BBQ, and watching your grandkids grow up. Listen to me closely. Start the vinegar soaks tonight. Throw those old sweaty synthetic socks in the trash. Get your blood moving with those ankle pumps. These steps cost almost nothing, but the cost of ignoring them is more than you can afford to pay. You have worked too hard for your independence to let a microscopic fungus take it away from you. Take control of your health today because your feet are the foundation of your freedom. Don't let that foundation crumble. Stay vigilant, stay active, and most importantly, stay independent. I'll see you in the next one. All right, friends, that's all for today's topic. Before we go, let's do a quick recap of the most important life-saving takeaways. Please etch these into your memory. Number 1, that yellow, thick, or crumbly nail is not just a cosmetic issue, it is a major red flag that your immune system and your circulation are struggling to protect your extremities from opportunistic invaders. Number 2, if you have diabetes or even prediabetes, your blood becomes like a high-octane fuel for these fungal invaders, turning a small irritation into a systemic threat that can lead to life-altering infections and even amputation. Number 3, never ignore the minor changes in your feet, because losing your mobility is the fastest ticket to a nursing home and the end of your independent life. Listen to me closely. Treat your feet with the same respect you treat your heart. My friends, true health isn't an unreachable goal. It's hidden in the tiny choices we make every single day. I hope today's guide truly hits home for you. If you found this helpful, please don't be stingy. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your family and friends. Your single share might literally save a life and keep a family whole. I'll see you in the next video.